Today, I'm gonna show you how to make this badass water bottle, both cheaply and easily. Stay tuned. Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So when I go out on like LARP adventures or whatever, one of the hardest things to do is find a good way to like hide your water bottle. Sounds like a really simple thing, I know, but in order to have something that kind of looks in time and is also like very well functional and everything, it's actually kind of tricky. Now, I did do a video here on making a leather water bottle, and our Patreon recently voted for us to revisit that and try a different way. So that's today's episode. Today, we are going to very cheaply and easily make a water bottle. Specifically, one designed to resemble this bota skin. Now, if you follow our live streams at all, monthly, Maddie does like a live stream where she goes over her process of like making the art and stuff that we're gonna be using on this show. And during the last one, she came up with this of how we want this thing to look. So okay, we have the design, we have the plan, let's get going. Oh, just before we start, my analytics show that like still 60% of you who watch us regularly aren't subscribed. So if you could do me a solid and just hit that subscribe button, that'd be awesome. Okay, though these like wine skins are traditionally made out of like, I think it's goat skin, and then sealed inside with a pitch or something, that could be kind of complicated, and I really wanted to make this as easy as possible. Though that does leave us with one dilemma, which is making the actual like internal bladder that's gonna hold the water. It obviously needs to be watertight, and it needs to be non-reactive so that you're not like poisoning yourself over time. After doing a bunch of research, I realized I had two options. One was making like a silicone bladder, which although really cool, I don't think is as cheap or easy as what I'm going for. But the other option was using a mylar plastic. Mylar is commonly used for like long-term storage of foods and comes in sealable versions, which is exactly what we're gonna be using. I was able to find this package of them over in the camping sections of my local Cabela's, which ends up just being perfect. They're often used for like if you have a vacuum sealer, you put your food in there or whatever, you put it into the machine, it vacuums it out, and then it heats up the ends of it to seal it. This one here though is cut to size. It's made like a giant tube. You just cut it how you want to, and then you heat it up to seal it. And the reason why I like this better is that package came with 2 rolls of these, and each one of these rolls, I mathed it out, comes to about 15 bladders. Not only that, but that box cost me like $11, $12, something like that. That's awesome. I love that deal. But I also play with the fact of taking like one of the bladders out of a bag-and-box wine. Though that would work, I ultimately decided against it because you'd have to like fold it up to fit it into the space. It's less customizable, and then it leaves a lot of like creases and folds and whatever for liquid to get stuck in and maybe rot over time, which isn't great. Oh, just as an aside, I looked into this stuff. It's BPA free and won't be like leaching nasty stuff into the water. So yeah, preppers have themselves recorded using this as like long-term water storage or whatever. So it should be okay. But as always, I'm not an expert. Do your own research. Make sure you're picking the materials that are safe for you. I start by laying the plastic down onto a piece of paper so I can get its dimensions, because that's all I have to work inside of. I also account for the factory-made seals on the side here, because those are some of the stronger seals and I want to keep them in place wherever possible. So after drawing those in place, I now at least know what like my maximum height dimension is, right? From there, I can start fleshing out the actual bottle. I start by finding the middle of that space and then using my compass to draw a circle, and immediately realized that's wrong. That's the wrong approach. Specifically because I want where like the majority of that water is gonna live, kind of that bulbous part, to be below the spout. Here's a little bit more on why that is. So the bota bag or wineskin is a traditional thing that's made in Spain and other areas in the Mediterranean and is used for holding water. Now, point of fact, we are not making a traditional bota bag. If you want one of those, there are still people who do make it in the traditional ways, and I highly recommend you support them. I'll leave some links down in the description below to some I've found. But it actually has a really cool design. Not only does the shape make it so that it's easy to kind of carry, it conforms to the like shape of your hip and everything, but by having the spout here actually higher than the body of it, it makes it so that it leaves this little air gap at the top while making sure everything else here is full. If instead, for example, you had this higher up, water will always find level, right? So all the rest of this space would be wasted and you have a big empty area there. By having it down lower here, you're ensuring that there's always going to be kind of an air gap up at the top, making it harder to spill or whatever, while the whole rest of the bag can be full. Now again, ours is made to look like this bag. A traditional bag is made out of goat skin, which is sewed together and then sealed with something like a pitch to make it waterproof. Again, some links in the description below to some traditional makers. And bags designed like this have been used for centuries, specifically for like farmers, travelers, herders, and are often used in festival to denote like camaraderie, like sharing your drink with someone. Again, I'm gonna leave links to people who keep that tradition alive down in the description below. Cool, so with all of that in mind, I actually made this circle just a bit smaller so that it would fit underneath where the spout will end up. Then I just kind of freehand drew the rest until I kind of liked the vibes of the thing. I'm sure there's a way for us to figure out how much like volume it would cover if I drew a certain amount. I wasn't gonna do that. I just kind of wanted to see what would feel like right in my hands if I was carrying it. And that roughly this is the size I decided was good. And that is part of the fun of using this Mylar because we're gonna seal it into basically whatever shape we want. So really whatever kind of style and shape water bottle you're going for, you can make happen with this stuff. It's really cool. Happy with that, I just cut this out with a nice sharp X-Acto blade, stuck it onto my plastic, and used a Sharpie to trace it out. Now, as mentioned, this stuff is heat sealed, right? So we're going to use heat to seal around the image we just drew. To do this, I played it safe and just put a baking sheet over the whole thing and used my iron turned all the way up to just kind of trace around it. The baking sheet worked out perfectly because I can actually see my drawing right through it. So it was easy to stay nice and close to that line and seal it exactly into the shape I wanted. Then I just went back around with some scissors and I cut around my line, leaving about a half of an inch extra. Remember, that seal is our protection between us and water just spilling everywhere. So if you put it like too short and there's not enough protection there, any little tension on that seal could cause like a catastrophic break. So as much of that flashing as you can leave, you're just buying yourself a little bit of extra safety. Now real quick, this worked like really well. Like I was so surprised. This was experimental at first and running my iron along it, I wasn't sure it was gonna seal up well, but it was like no problem. This was supposed to be a trial and error thing. One and done, we did it. Though this needs to be like a bag. We need to be able to put stuff in it, specifically water or wine. I think wine will work too. Can I store wine in a Mylar bag? Yeah, it should be good actually. Mylar bags are often used in like the bag-and-box wine. So I think we're gonna be okay here. Again, for legal purposes, do your own research, don't just trust me. Okay, so to be able to actually put stuff in this, we're just gonna kind of cut along the seam at the top to open up that spout. Then just to check and make sure it's actually holding, I just kind of blew the thing up like a balloon. I'll have you know I did this far more than the one shown there. I just kind of walk around the house being like trying to pop it and stuff to see how well the seams held. The seams held really, really well. Though I need to find a way to keep that spout open, right? Because it just right now wants to consistently slam itself shut or not hold shape. So to do that, I just grabbed some of this NSF rated rubber tubing here, or plastic tubing, I think it's plastic, and cut out about 1.5 inches worth of it. This I just kind of stuck into place and then pinched the Mylar nice and tight around it and ironed that in. And this seemed to work just fine. It still held air, so it seemed like it sealed very, very tightly. It didn't want to go anywhere when I pushed on it. I was actually really happy with it because originally I was planning on using silicone to seal it in place. So with that, it was just off to the sink to see if this bad boy can actually function for its purposes. And spoiler, yeah, man, again, one and done. This was a fun, like, a thing that just worked. I'm very happy about that. This project doesn't stay that way, I will tell you that now, but I was very happy at this point in time. Not only that, but I was really happy with the volume. In testing it through these measuring cups, I saw that it held 6.5 cups worth. I know in the video you're seeing 6 cups worth, that's because I spilled half of a cup on my table. So 6.5 cups-ish. Which is great, that's like 1.5 liters. I'm very happy with that. Now that's all well and good, but at this point it's like a silver bag. Great for like maybe a cyberpunk LARP or something, but definitely not what we're going for here. So we want to make like a casing to one, make it look more kind of theme specific, but also to protect the thing. It is just a very like small plastic bag. And luckily, since we've already made a template for this, we know that size, I just laid that onto some of this really nice chrome tan leather and marked around it, leaving about 1/2 inch of seam allowance. We're gonna end up sewing pieces together and I wanna be able to hide that seam, so we're gonna turn it inside out first, sew it, and then turn it right side out. So you need that seam allowance so you have enough to sew to. Real quick though, in that scene, I am using this little marker here. This was actually made by one of you. This was made by a subscriber and sent to us just as a gift. It's not like a sponsorship or anything. I just wanted to give a shout out because this thing is awesome. It's made by Ronald Handmade. I'm gonna be putting their stuff in the description below so you can just check it out. Really great quality, and thank you again for sending this. This thing's awesome. One may have been sent to Maddie. The world will never know. I have 2. All right, so with that cut out, we now have 1/2 of our casing here. Get the other half, I just laid it face down and used it as my template to trace around it and then cut out the next piece. You want to do it that way, like opposite, face against face there, because then you get mirror images as opposed to doing it the other way, in which case you'll get the same exact one. So when you go to sew them together, it won't work, right? All right, so now this is all well and good, but I don't just want to sew those things edges together because it's going to leave me with like a little sharp thing, right? Which will work, but I want to be able to have this thing sit down. And unless I can make the bottom flat somehow, I'm afraid that it won't. It'll just constantly be like the keel of a boat and wanna keel over. So what I decided to do is I went ahead and I measured all around the outside perimeter of this thing with some tailor's tape, giving me about 36 inches. I then cut this strip of my leather 2 inches wide, longer than I needed it just in case. Just as an aside, 2 inches wide ended up being too much. I didn't show it, I ended up cutting, I think I cut it down to 1.5 inches instead, which is much more reasonable. That would have been very, very thick. Okay, so again, we're going to be turning this thing inside out once we're done. So we begin by putting that little gusset against one side of the leather with their finished faces touching each other. Then I went all around the perimeter with my sewing machine to lock them into place. This gives me this nice clean line all the way around it, though as you can see here, I did stop a little bit short at the top. This is because we have these little bladders now that we can interchange, right? And I wanted a way to easily be able to get them out and put them back in case over time they break or they wear down or they just get dirty. I mean, with how cheap and easy they are to make, you could actually just like make one per event and not even worry about cleaning it afterwards. You just throw the damn thing away and put a new one in. Anyways, in order to facilitate that, I figured I'd make this thing act almost like the tongue of a shoe. So it'll be like laced into place and laid down. I can unlace it, take that little tongue out, take out the bladder, put a new one in, and then lace it back up. I think that'll work. That makes sense in my head, at least. So with that figured out, I just kind of did exactly the same thing with the other side, making sure the finished faces are touching each other, and then sewing them together. And this is where things went off the rails for me. Through movie magic here, I'm not showing it because I was mostly just swearing in the background while it was happening. But it's my fault. I started fiddling with the sewing machine because I wanted the threads to be a little bit tighter, and I messed something up. And it was just taking me so long to try to fix it that I just ended up hand sewing the rest of it. Which, if you've been a follower of the show for a while, you know I hate. I hate it with such a passion. Not because hand sewing sucks or anything, just like you generally don't have the time to do it, and I was already a little bit behind on this one. And honestly, with all the stuff I had to do for like my day job, I was really stressed out about it. Which is where today's sponsor, Fume, honestly really comes in handy. Now, I've talked about Fume before. It is a flavored air device, which not only has no batteries, no vapor, no nicotine, but honestly, it's just a thing that's like, it feels good to have in my hands. I'm one of those people who absolutely needs to fiddle with things, and especially when I'm stressed out. And this little guy is purpose made from that, even down to like, hear this? That little fidgety clicker thing going on there. Love that. They're super well made, have a great weight to them, and I really find the flavors in them super calming. They use these little flavor cores that you just kind of slide into them, and then they have these little vents on the front so you can control how much airflow and how much of that flavor is coming through at any point in time. My favorite flavor right now is the crisp mint. It's really, really good. But I'm also vibing with the spearmint ice and always love the cinnamon hearts. This one is really, really good. And with the holidays happening like right now, they make a fantastic little stocking stuffer. If you're interested, just head to tryfume.com/skilltree and use my code SKILLTREE at checkout to get one of these free toppers with your journey pack. These are these awesome little rubber tips that make it a lot more comfortable in the mouth and kind of make it like chewable, which is fantastic for me. Again, especially when I'm stressed out, it makes me feel better. Anyways, I genuinely do love this product. I have mine with me all the time. So if you're interested, definitely check that out. Again, that's tryfume.com/skilltree, or you can use my little QR code there as well. Okay, so with everything all sewn together, I just went ahead and turned this sucker inside out. And look at that. That's pretty cool actually, right? Like that looks like one of those little wineskin bags. It's great. And once I fished in my Mylar bag there and blew it up, like I was over the moon with how that looked. Super excited. Though at this point, because I was fiddling with it, the rubber kind of neck that I had put in finally did come out because I hadn't sealed it with anything. So I did decide to use a silicone for it. Again, just like with anything, you want this to be safe for you to use, right? The one I used was this RTV 4500. It's got an NSF rating, and it specifically like can be used in situations like this where it's going to come in contact with water that you will be putting into your body. This I just kind of put around that tubing and shoved it back into place, letting it seal up. While that silicone cures, I went back to the leather and decided to start actually like putting the lace holes in and all that. This is dead easy. I just went ahead and punched my holes about an inch apart and then dropped in my eyelets, using the appropriate striker and anvil to lock those into place. Then I just used this leather cordage to tie it all together, and like, that's it. That's a bag. That's so cool. I'd be happy with just that. Pop a cork in it, we're done. But again, I do want to make it look fancy. I want to make it look like the artwork we have here. Not only that, but there is another issue. You see, I went ahead and I wrapped the thing in chrome tan, which is easy because it's nice and loose. If you have any questions on the different kinds of leather, you can check out this video I made here. But chrome tan is called chrome tan because it's processed with like chromium salts, which is not good for you. It is not safe to put into your body, and I didn't want to poison myself. Granted, I'm not going to be drinking directly from it, but I'm sure as the water passes through or whatever, or my lips are on it, that's just not a great thing. Veg tan, however, is much safer for these processes, and I actually just happen to have some of this milled veg tan here. Again, check out that video, but milled basically means it was just kind of put in a picture like a giant dryer and moved around until it got like all the fibers were broken and made soft. This I just cut into this shape here and dyed green, so that'll fit around the spout, kind of like it was in that drawing. But you'll see I made the top of it stick out some so that we can wrap it around the chrome tan. This is gonna give me a safer place in case any water touches by or like my lips end up touching it. I also went ahead and made this little patch here with my skill tree logo on it. Again, like the image. Though, I realized I made another error in judgment. If I wanted to do this, I should have done it before I sewed up the whole back portion of that, right? I should have just sewed the gusset together at the bottom, put all these pieces in, and then finish sewing it. And at this point, I even had my sewing machine all fixed up. So like, I could have. But no, now that it's all together, I was hand sewing again. Not only that, but I was hand sewing inside like a really small space. Total pain in the ass. To do this though, I just went along the perimeter of it, poking my holes, then put it into place and used an awl to one at a time put in my little stitch holes there. Now it should go without saying, the bag isn't inside of it at this time. I actually just filled it with a bunch of old rags so that it would be in shape as I went. And then removed the rags, sewed, put the rags back in place. It was a process. Don't do it that way, okay? Anyway, you can see after a bit, it is done. I have it all locked into place. That little lip protector is over the top there. And if you're curious, I just used a running stitch for this. It doesn't need to hold on. It's not gonna have like crazy tension. So I wasn't using like a saddle stitch or anything. If you want to learn more about the different stitches, I also did a video on that here. But this is just like your super basic, like goes in one hole, out the next hole, in the next hole, out the next hole. Just kind of like cartoon stitching almost. Now I know what you're saying, you in the comment section. You can stop typing right now because I understand I dyed that leather. And so there might still be some chemicals that I'd be getting into my body. But I'm okay with that because I'm going to be sealing this thing anyways. No matter what, it is leather that is going to be in a wet situation, right? So I want to protect it, and there's a lot of ways to do that. You can get like a food-safe oil. I think tongue oil can be used for something like that. You'll have to look into it. I know there are some good food-safe oils, but I didn't have any of that. Instead, I actually just melted some beeswax here and then dipped the whole thing into my pot of beeswax. Another quick note, make sure you heat up your leather before you do this. My leather was too cold, so when I put it in, it just kind of made this little like wax paste all over everything, which is fine. I just went back in with a heat gun and heated it up as I went along, remelting the wax and then wiping away any of the excess. Though I did scrub a little bit by using a heat gun instead of just a regular old hairdryer, darkening this section here that got a little bit more crispy than I would have liked. It was dumb, live and learn. Also though, because I wasn't being careful about it, and at this point I was a little bit frustrated with some stuff, I accidentally poked a hole in my bag because it was on my table near my sharp tools. But again, it worked out just fine because it takes like 15 seconds to make a new one. And this one I decided to add a copper pipe to give myself like a little bit stiffer of a nozzle here and have it stick up just a little bit more. Also, I just figured if you're gonna be able to see into the bottle, I like the look of the copper better than the rubber. Finally, I just dropped in these little ring brackets here using rapid rivets to keep them into place. This is gonna give me a nice way to hold it onto like a strap or whatever, while also keeping the bottle in the right orientation so that top, again, stays higher than the rest of the water in it and it's never really pushing against the cork. Then I just sealed it with the cork and then actually just put it onto a little strap to see how it feels. And look at that! That thing is so good! It has that kind of shape. I'm actually okay with the fact that like right here is darker from my little heat gun oopsie. Mostly because most of the characters I play are like travel worn or been a ranger or whatever, and that just kind of looks like it's well used, right? It has a great look. It feels really good on me. Like, I'm genuinely happy with this. Look at that. Check it out. Isn't that cool? And it holds so much water. Not only that, but look at, sits down nice and flat when we're not using it. And when it's empty, you can like fold it all up and pack it tightly into your bag. You ready? Watch. What? That's a lot. Right. Drink it right here. That's great. That's perfect. Now over time, I think we can make improvements to the design. Maybe make the spout a little bit taller in these bags. Maybe make it out of fancier materials like a horn spout or something, right? That'd be really cool. This way it can stick out a little bit more proud past the leather, but it won't look out of place. I don't know, there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with this. Do me a favor, leave me some ideas or suggestions on how you do it or how you think we could improve on it in the comment section below. But yeah, all in all, this thing is like super cheap and super easy, especially if you avoid any of the mistakes I made. If you have a sewing machine, you can bust like one of these things out, hour and a half. If you don't have a sewing machine and you enjoy hand sewing, it would just take a little bit longer, maybe like 3 or 4 hours. Honestly, super easy to make, and again, super duper cheap. And it looks so good. Oh, I'm so happy with it. But again, leave some stuff down in the comment section to let me know what you thought about this project. And if you liked it, please give us some of that like it love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when we release new content. Also ring the bell. I always forget to talk about the bell. Anywho, thanks for watching, and in the meantime, keep leveling up, you. You've made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that. It's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people's noble ranks. These are our Patreon members, and we cannot do this without them. That is no exaggeration. It's because of them we're able to afford any of this. A giant, massive shout out to our Grandmaster tier patrons, WildFox99, Froggy, and Dragon Designs. If you like what we do here and want to support us and help us grow it further, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, you can just watch one of these episodes that YouTube thinks you'd like, and that honestly helps out a lot too. All right, now that I have my Waterskin, I must go off to an adventure. See you soon.